This is Justin with Style as Substance. In today's episode, I will be sharing my quick thoughts on Battleship Potemkin. Several years ago, I checked a copy of Battleship Potemkin out from my school library. At the time, I honestly didn't know much about the film, its political context, historical significance, or influence on the artistic medium. It would be one of the first silent features I would see. My preconceived notions going in were that it would be sort of cute to today's standards, but still be a compelling, albeit simplistic story. Some of that is true. There is a charming quality to the first act, and Eisenstein successfully told an immersive, oddly inspiring story that is straight to the point and is never bogged down by complexities. However, there are three things that I did not take into account. The first is how gorgeous the photography and movement of the camera would be. The second is how rapid and contemporary in nature the editing style would be. The third is just how brutal all of it is. With a slight understanding of how tame old Hollywood was, I would never have guessed that a Soviet-produced film from the 1920s would be so visceral and violent. It is true that this is not unique to Battleship Potemkin, as various silent films were crazy, but at the time I wouldn't have guessed that. By the time the famous massacre scene occurred, I was completely taken aback. I then reevaluated my teenage ignorance about old cinema. The very ending also struck out to me on my first viewing. Since then, I became more familiar with silent films and their place in film history. I became a lot more open to exploring different corners of film across the world and throughout time. I was interested in doing so already, but I didn't guess I would connect so much to a film so old. Now that I'm able to take a better look at Battleship Potemkin in the grand scope of its cultural, historical, and artistic context, I am happy to report that it holds up really well on rewatch. Throughout the different chapters, there is a growing sense of dread, and then the build-up of attitudes in response to unfair treatment in the collective conscious. What's brilliant about the film is the viewer really feels and understands this mindset and call to action and protest. Gradually, everything comes together in the Odessa Steps scene. Many film classes will just show the Odessa Steps massacre to demonstrate its influential editing techniques and move on. But the main issue with that is that it is stripping it from the context of the overall picture. As great as that scene is, part of what makes it so powerful is how it functions in conjunction with the scenes that precede and follow. The sheer terror depicted in the Odessa Steps massacre is ineffable. The rapid editing is throughout the film, but manifests itself to greater heights in this scene to give off an uncomfortable amount of tension. The scene first appears to reach its peak when the unconscious child is stomped upon by others, and the woman carries his body up in protest. Her fate is in a dramatic fashion, and the viewer would think it couldn't get worse from there, but it does. A lot of the emotional impact is accomplished through Eisenstein's montage editing, and his influence can be apparent in films of today. After the most memorable series of images from this sequence ends, the film itself comes to a halt pace-wise. While the action is not over, the film takes on a significantly more melancholic and slow approach until the final scene. This is so the viewer can better reflect on the events that transpired and better feel for the victims of war, even if they are also the ones who started it. Eisenstein doesn't generally have main characters in his films, and Battleship Potemkin is no exception. Sure, there are important characters, but the focus of the camera is not on single individuals, but rather the collective social experience. This approach is prominent throughout. And with this said, everything unfolds in the ending. It was nice to revisit the film and recall my first experience watching it, and how I responded to its ending. I remember feeling both happy and surprised. It surely subverted my expectations, to say the least. It didn't even matter that this is technically propaganda, because you really feel for the characters. This is because, at the end of the day, differences can be set aside, for we are all brothers and sisters.